Hello and welcome to part 2 of the SITREP's deep dive into the foreign medical program. Today we're joined by Dirk Rasnick, and who is the supervisory program analyst for the program. So we have the subject matter expert here on the SITREP. Dirk, welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
We're doing all right. Now this is I'm sure as Paul's already talked about, it's a unique topic and something that affects veterans that they don't even probably realize it. Because we're not talking about living overseas, though that is part of the pro. We're also talking about if you're traveling, you happen to be traveling overseas and get sick or hurt. So how does one then enroll in the program, in the foreign medical program for the VA?
So you can fill out the registration form. It is available online at the FMP website, and you can mail that in. You can fax it in. You can send it via email, and you can also go through Ask VA and send that to us, and we will register you for the program.
Okay, so I think it's important to differentiate. If I'm already enrolled in VA healthcare, I'm not necessarily enrolled in the foreign medical program. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
So if I'm going to travel abroad, anywhere outside the United States, even Canada,
correct,
then I need to make sure I register so that if I, God forbid, have an issue while traveling, I can seek medical coverage abroad, and then the VA will help me with those bills and such.
Correct. So if you're like going on a cruise, most people, cruise to the Bahamas or wherever, and they really don't think about it, that, maybe one of their service-connected issues would flare up, right? So, it's always good to go ahead and be registered for something like that, to have those covered whenever you are there.
Let me make sure I understand. So if I'm traveling abroad, even if I'm 100%, I can only be treated for what I'm service connected for.
Exactly.
So if I fall down the gangway stairs on the cruise ship and break my leg, and I have no service connection for any leg or ankle or anything, then the foreign medical program is not going to help me out as a veteran.
Correct.
Oh, okay. That's interesting then. So, it's basically, hopefully if you get hurt or sick abroad, it's something that you're service connected for already.
Right. And that could be something that's between 0 and 100%.
Okay.
0% service-connected disability is still a service-connected disability. So let's say you were on that cruise ship and you're service-connected for vertigo, and you get vertigo and you fall down the stairs and break your leg. Because of the vertigo causing you to break your leg, you could be possibly reimbursed for that treatment. But if it's just,
I just trip down the stairs.
Exactly.
I'm on my own.
You're on your own.
Okay. Now, what about, though, for emergency medical care? I'm in Spain, we're on vacation, and I have a heart attack.
It has to be service-connected.
Really?
If you're service-connected for high blood pressure, something like that, and you have a heart attack, then, that
you'll be all set.
Yeah, you'd be good. But, if you're not service connected for that and you end up in the emergency room for a heart attack, then you're on your own, unfortunately.
Okay. So let's say I am service connected for hypertension or whatever. I have a heart attack in a foreign country. How does it work? How do I file a claim, or, do they just get directly billed? How does that whole thing work?
That's going to depend on you and the provider. You can work it out with the provider where they can direct bill us. If you reach out to us, either by Ask VA in the foreign medical program, we can do an outreach to, yourself and the provider, and help you with those situations. Those are kind of one by one, situations that we can assist with. Yes.
Okay. But there may be a case where I have to pay the bill, and then I file with you guys to get reimbursed myself.
Right.
That's probably the most common, I would imagine.
The most common is that way, yes, sir.
Okay. What about dental care? If I'm at 100% disability and, as I go down the stairs, I knock my teeth out, does the foreign medical program, does it cover dental care?
It does in some circumstances. You have to be
service connected for something in your mouth.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I've seen certain times where only certain numbered teeth are covered. Like tooth 21 or
all right,
whatnot.
Sure.
So it can get very specific.
So, okay, I am service connected. What documentation are you guys going to need if I pay the bill myself? And do you need what do you need? A record of services? What do I have to walk away from the hospital or doctor's office with in order to get my claim?
What you want is a let's say even a statement that from the doctor and the facility that says, what was wrong with you? What was your diagnosis, right? And then what did they do to treat that diagnosis? What's the procedures that they did? That lets us know, one, if you're service connected for that, and if what they did for you was actually to treat that diagnosis. And then, of course, the bill's showing that you paid in full.
All right, so some type of statement of work, and then obviously the billing, a receipt or something saying that statement of work cost me X, Y, Z.
Exactly.
And then I just send those in to you guys. I know the information you said is all on your website.
Yeah.
On how to file a claim and such.
Right. You send in a claim form, tells us who to pay. If it's going to pay the provider, if it's going to pay you.
Okay.
So we process the claim at that point, and then we know who to pay at that time.
I guess this is kind of a funny question, but maybe not. What about pre-authorizations?
We don't do pre-authorizations. Now, we have, in certain cases, done predetermination letters where, you might have a provider that, let's say you're going in for a knee replacement, and that provider, isn't certain that the F&P program is going to pay. So you can send in that information through Ask VA. And at that point in time, we will look at what the provider sent us, saying what they wanted to do. And if it's something really complex that we can't determine, we have a team that we send it to, our clinical team, and they can, say, yeah, that's appropriate, or it's not appropriate. And at that point in time, we'll send you a predetermination letter that says that, we should pay this. There shouldn't be an issue as long as you're doing what you said you're going to do. So it's not saying that, yes, we're going to 100% pay, but it's also, saying, hey, if you did what you're saying you did, then more than likely than not, we're going to pay for it.
So I think a differentiation we need to make here is, probably if you're just traveling, you're not thinking about a pre-authorization. We're talking about veterans who live overseas.
Correct.
Right. Whether I'm living in the Philippines or I'm living in Europe or wherever I've resided outside the United States, and now I need a knee replacement or something. That's, if you're on a cruise, you're not thinking about a pre-authorization.
Yeah. Right.
So my question to you then is same type thing. If I'm living abroad, then I need to also register for the FNP program. We talked about that earlier in terms of people traveling, but if people reside overseas, then they need to be registered within your program,
right?
So that they're eligible then to do the care.
Exactly.
Okay. What about elective medical procedures abroad? If I'm living in France and I want to have eye surgery or, whatever the case may be.
It has to be because of a service-connected condition.
Once again, everything comes back to being service-connected. Okay.
So let's say, for an example, you're 0% service-connected for a scar, and you want to do something to remove that scar, right? You want to have an elective surgery to make yourself look better or, have more self-confidence, whatever. You're 0% service connected for that SCAR. So that could be something that we could look at for payment.
Okay. But once again, if you're living abroad or you're traveling abroad,
right,
know your service connection.
Exactly.
Know what you're connected for.
Exactly.
All right.
And when you register for the program, we send you a letter that says, here's what you are service connected for. So, that's kind of a key component of this, because now you know what you're service connected for, and you can rest a little easier that way.
Right. You at least know, and hopefully if something happens, I'm service connected.
Exactly.
Which for most of us, that's probably not going to be the case. But hopefully, if that, God forbid, happens.
Yeah.
How are reimbursements calculated under the program?
Reimbursements are calculated at 100% of whatever the veteran pays. So, we may get a bill that's in pesos, right? And let's say it's they're in the Philippines and we get it in pesos. Mm-hmm. We go to an online application called Oanda, and we look at the exchange rate for that particular day. Those of us that have been in the military, we know that and overseas, we know that exchange rate changes daily. On
a daily basis,
so,
sure.
It's very important that we know the date that the service took place and that you paid, so we know exactly what we should pay you.
Okay, that's good to know. Along the same lines, though, what if I receive treatment in a country, and are there countries where the FMP is not available?
Yes, there are. If you go to any U.S. territory, the U.S. territories are not covered under FMP.
But let me stop you there. So I understand that, but because they're United States territory, so shouldn't my VA healthcare enrollment then cover me in Guam or Puerto Rico or the U.S. Virgin Islands? So if I'm traveling, they're still U.S. territory, so they're considered United States territory.
Right.
So I would think my enrollment in VA healthcare would cover any medical issues that arise if I'm visiting those particular areas.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. And there are a couple of other countries that are on a list that we don't cover: North Korea, Cuba, and Iran. So those countries there are specifically called out in the FMP policy. So, U.S. territories and those three countries specifically.
So I'm enrolled in your program. Mm-hmm. Do I enroll by specific country? So let's say when I enroll, I'm living in France, but then we move to Germany. Do I have to re-enroll or update you? How does that? So once I'm in the program, I'm in the program.
Right. Once you're in the program, you're in the program. As a matter of fact, if you're a veteran that has any type of service connection, you're automatically in the program. You're just not registered for it, so we don't know. So if you send us a registration, you could be here in the States, you could be overseas. The only thing we need to know is what your address is so that we know where to send them.
Where to send, okay. Are there any type of limitations on types of providers or services covered by FMP?
No, not unless it's deemed experimental.
Okay. Does CHAMP VA fall under that program, the FMP program?
No, it does not.
Okay, so if I'm enrolled in CHAMP VA, then that's going to have nothing to do.
No, it doesn't have anything to do with foreign medical, but CHAMP VA does have CHAMP VA foreign. And that's a separate piece of CHAMP VA in itself. And
so if somebody falls into that situation, they need to reach out to CHAMP VA and figure out if they're living abroad or if they're traveling abroad.
Exactly.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this. We've talked about it, but okay, if I'm in Germany and something happens and I'm a veteran enrolled in VA healthcare, can I go to a U.S. military base or any country that has a U.S. military base and seek medical care?
Yeah. That's going to be determined by that individual base. If they have the space for it, if they're availability and all that.
Okay. Can someone, and if so, how, can they be removed from the FMP program involuntarily?
No. They cannot.
So as long as you're an eligible veteran enrolled in VA healthcare and you've registered for the FMP program, you're not going to find out, I'm living in Japan and all of a sudden one day I'm going to get a letter saying you're out.
Right. No.
That doesn't happen.
No.
Okay. Understanding what you're saying there, but what if I get reclassified? At times, Veterans Benefits, VBA does reclassify some service connections. So let's say I was 10% for an ankle or something, had an operation through the VA or even through the FMP program, and now VBA has determined that I'm better. I no longer have 10%. So then I'm not service connected for that ankle anymore. So that ankle would no longer be eligible under your program now.
Correct. You have to be between 0% service connected and 100%
Right.
service connected.
So I guess my point is involuntarily no. The only time is going to be if you reevaluated for a service connection and that service connection changes, then you may be not eligible anymore because that service connection is no longer there.
Exactly.
Okay. What if I'm traveling abroad or even living abroad and the care I need is not available at my location? Can the program help me get to where I need to go or help with, how that, if I need to get medevac or something to Paris or whatever?
At this time, we do not pay for travel. Even emergency travel, we don't reimburse for.
And there's really no one to call to help me connect the dots and put all that together. I'm going to have to rely on what the folks in that particular area are telling me needs to happen and how that needs to happen.
Unfortunately, yes, that's true.
Okay. How can I contact the VA for any specific questions that I may have or veterans and their families may have on the foreign medical program?
So you can email the HAC FMP. You can put a Ask VA request in. My team answers those on a daily basis.
Okay.
So we see, lots of those that come in, and we take care of all those on an individual basis. You can also call the call center and call the FMP program, and they'll be more than happy to assist you at that time.
So I guess in wrapping up here, the bottom line is if you're a service-connected veteran, even at 0%, and you're traveling or planning on living abroad, you need to get on your website, the Foreign Medical Program's website, and register.
Correct.
So that you're in the system, and now anything happens or whatever, you guys know about me and where I am.
Exactly.
Okay.
We don't even need to know where you're going to go. If you're already living overseas, obviously we're going to get that address. But if you think you're going to go on a cruise, or let's say you're just going to go down to Cabo for, a good time, go ahead and fill out a registration form whenever you're doing your visa information, and or not visa, but passport, and send it off to us, and that's all you need to do.
Okay. Well, Dirk, thank you so much for being here. This is important information. A lot of folks are traveling, and make sure you're registered on the website for the Foreign Medical Program if you plan on traveling abroad or plan on living abroad. All the information discussed here today will be below, and as always, if you're served or currently serving, thank you for your service. Hey folks, connecting with your benefits is our primary mission, and the SITREP is providing more options than ever.
Subscribe to our free email newsletter, subscribe to our audio podcast channel, or subscribe to our content on YouTube.
For details and links, check out the description below.